the business. The hardest thing to do in the conservative movement or anywhere else is to, one, run a successful business, and two, make a difference. We here at Daily Wire do both things. In fact, we try to generate a profit so we can continue to make a difference. And it turns out when you lose money, you don't actually have the wherewithal or the resources in order to do things like spend enormous quantities of money making What is a Woman by Matt Walsh, or making The Greatest Lie Ever Sold by Candace Owens, or funding the investigative reporters who shift the Virginia gubernatorial race by uncovering what happens in Loudoun County.
You know, I have to agree to a large degree. I have to agree with Ben Shapiro on this one. He's helping me to see things in ways I did not see before. Hello, friends. Welcome to Look and Live You here with Pastor James Devallon, and this is The Perspective. I have Ben Shapiro on the channel for this one. We are still talking about Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder's situation is something to pay attention to. So we have conservative having discussions about how these contracts are lined up and written and what is being endorsed and pushed forward in relationship to big tech. Steven Crowder did push back against Daily Wire, but this matter is much more complicated than I thought. That's why I hate to pick sides, especially when you don't know everything. And this is why we're going to listen to Ben Shapiro's perspective. I mean, Ben is upset. Okay, Ben is upset. He has every reason to be. But now we're going to listen to his line of argument here because he is saying a number of things that I have to say I actually agree with. Not everything, of course, but some things he's saying regarding Steven Crowder, his way of going about this stuff, is good to pay attention to that. So, friends, before we get into this video, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, like, and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Check out our links. We have a number of links below if you want to become a member of this channel. You're looking for Bible study as well. All that stuff is posted below. So without further ado, let us now get into the heart of the message.
Well, folks, I'm sure many of you have seen the controversy that has broken out between, I would say, our former friend Steven Crowder and those of us here at the Daily Wire.
Either this has to stop, or I'm going to have to stop.
And it makes me sick to my stomach. I know that my business partner, Jeremy Boring, has made him sick to his stomach as well, because we had always considered Steven a friend. I was Steven's first lawyer. I helped negotiate his contract with Fox News, going all the way back. There's got to be at least over a decade. And Steven and I had always been very friendly. I know Jeremy was even friendlier with Steven, had counseled him in very rough times. I had personally attempted to intervene when Steven was demonetized in June 2019 on YouTube. I actually sounded off so loudly that the people at YouTube reached out to me, and Susan Wojcicki, the head of YouTube, got on the phone with me, and I reamed her out over demonetizing Steven. And I hope it made a difference. You know, look, I think that Steven is an incredibly talented comedian. I also think that what he is doing to my friend Jeremy Boring right now is one of the most disgusting things I have ever seen in politics. It really is.
This is good that the Ben Shapiro is establishing this context. I didn't realize how much of a good relationship that Steven Crowder had with the Daily Wire, Jeremy Bowen, and Ben, and the rest of the team. That is actually very significant. It really adds context to everything else. This doesn't necessarily mean Steven's argument is now all of a sudden insignificant, but it's just to say it's good to know that these were friends, okay?
Is one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. In order to understand what's happening, I think you have to understand a couple of things. So for those who missed the story, basically, we offered Steven a term sheet, a non-binding term sheet. A non-binding term sheet is exactly what it sounds like. It is a list of terms for a proposed negotiation for a contract. And then negotiation happens, then you come to a final contract. That is what a non-binding term sheet is. His agent had solicited us to make him an offer. This is when he was in his closing days with the Blaze. And so we sent him over a non-binding term sheet for $50 million.
That's important. So the term sheet was non-binding. It was not. So a non-binding term sheet, it's a type of a contract, but it's not like, this is it. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, I guess what he is adding to the situation here, to the whole discussion, is that there were things that could have been edited out of this contract. There were things that could have been done differently. So I'm guessing this is all good to know.
When he was in his closing days with the Blaze. And so we sent him over a non-binding term sheet for $50 million over the course of 4 years, with an additional 2-year option at $25 million. That is, as it sounds like, a lot of money. But we thought that Steven is worth it because Steven is, again, an incredibly talented guy with a very, very large following. And if you want to hear the actual terms of the term sheet, all you have to do is go to the description on this particular video or head on over to YouTube, and you can see my business partner, Jeremy Boring, read the terms word for word. Steven's original video in which he attacked us. So this week, Steven attacked Jeremy Boring and attacked the Daily Wire and suggested that if we had essentially offered him an enslavement contract that would have robbed him of all of his freedom and made him subject to the whims of big tech and all the rest of this kind of bullshit. And it's just not true. Jeremy, unlike Steven, read the entire text of the term sheet on the air and goes through it piece by piece and explains exactly how it works. And in short, all the contract says is, we are offering you this gigantic sum of money, and if you start to lose money for the company and for yourself, because you lose YouTube, for example, and we both lose money, so you lose some money. Because this is typically how contracts work. On this show, for example, if I lose advertisers and the revenue of the show goes down, then I lose revenue personally because the revenue of the show has gone down. So again, if you want the details, the legalistic details of all this, you can check out Jeremy's video. It is absolutely comprehensive and irrefutable because again, he reveals, I've never seen anybody else do this, he reveals literally the entirety of the what was supposed to be confidential term sheet that Steven decided to partially leak for his own benefit. And this is the part that's really ugly. Okay, so the part that's really ugly is the betrayal of friendship. So last night, Steven Crowder, in response to Jeremy reading the entire term sheet and saying somehow Steven misconstrued this and is using this to attack us and launch a website called Stop Big Con, as though we are in the pocket of big tech. We are in the pocket of big tech. We who have invested literally tens of millions of dollars building alternatives to big tech. We who put up people like Matt Walsh and Candace Owens and my show. We who have been attacked by Facebook and have been attacked in the legacy media all the time and who are routinely demonetized. What?
I have to agree with Ben here. Again, it's because truly the Daily Wire have been doing the work, and I think we should give them a lot of credit and give them some godly respect. We don't have to agree with everything that is in the contract to actually agree with the fact what Ben is saying here about the Daily Wire and the work that they are doing as the largest conservative platforms on YouTube and many other platforms. I mean, they are just doing it and doing it well. We have to give them credit for that. And definitely The Goodest Lie Ever Sold, What is a Woman, and many other things that they are doing on their platforms. And they are trying to, with all this homosexual stuff and LGBT stuff, they are trying to create a platform where it is family friendly, where they're teaching kids things that are in a positive. So we have to sit back and actually do acknowledge that the Daily Wire has been doing a great work. And this doesn't mean to say Steven Crowder's argument is altogether wrong either. So give them credit where credit is due.
Yes, nailed it. We were in the pocket of big tech. This was Steven's line of attack. And supposedly, this line of attack came from that term sheet, right? The idea was that the term sheet was doing the work of big tech because the term sheet suggested that if he got demonetized from YouTube and we both lost money, that he would also lose money. What he apparently wanted us to do was continue to pay him extraordinary sums of money, even if the show was losing money, which is called a charity. It is not called a business. The hardest thing to do in the conservative movement or anywhere else is to, one, run a successful business, and two, make a difference. We here at Daily Wire do both things. In fact, we try to generate a profit so we can continue to make a difference. And it turns out when you lose money, you don't actually have the wherewithal or the resources in order to do things, like spend enormous quantities of money making What is a Woman by Matt Walsh, or making The Greatest Lie Ever Sold by Candace Owens, or funding the investigative reporters who shift the Virginia gubernatorial race by uncovering what happens in Loudoun County, or put out good information each and every day to rebut the evils of the Biden administration, or spend the millions of dollars it takes to sue the Biden administration to stop the OSHA vax mandate, or any of that kind of stuff. That costs money. And in order to make that money, you have to run a business. So you can't run a charity for your hosts. That apparently is what Steven wanted, but Steven decides that this is, supposedly his story is, that he was so offended by the term sheet, he just had to speak out. He had to stand up for the little guy, right? Okay, there are a bunch of problems with this. I was willing to stay silent on all of this, generally speaking, and not get into the weeds and not get into Steven's personal conduct until the point when he personally recorded a phone call with my best friend, Jeremy Boring, and then proceeded to release that publicly. That is disgusting.
I have to agree again. Again, I am not trying to, how can I say this? There's a character called Pliable in the book, anyway, I don't want to be pliable. Okay, I don't want to be wishy-washy, in my positioning. I don't want to pick each side. Like I've said, I never wanted to pick side in the first place. I agree with Steven's position as far as him making a bold stand for what he believes and his willingness to say, I deserve more, and can challenge some things in the contract. And I don't think Steven is wrong about that. However, he's making so much sense here. I want you to hear what he said.
Until the point when he personally recorded a phone call with my best friend, Jeremy Boring.
That, even though I've listened to Steven Crowder's piece and we did a whole live stream on that, that was still wrong. Listen, without being choosy and political, if you have a private conversation with someone, right, about business, and you decided to record the person without them knowing about it, that's naturally not a good thing. And oftentimes, even in businesses, when you call in, they say, this so-and-so is being recorded, your voice is being recorded, yada, yada, yada. They tell you ahead of time. So the fact Steven actually recorded the voice of Jeremy Boring, saved the recording months in advance, and then released it at such a time to expose the Daily Wire, it wasn't a good thing. In other words, it's just not a good look. Even though the information, I get it. And some of the things that the Daily Wire was saying in the context of business, friendship, keep that in mind. So I'm opening things to you. I'm sharing things with you that are true about business and everything. And you take it and you put it in a different light. I think this is where Steven went wrong. His argument altogether wasn't wrong, but I think that recording didn't really do much for his argument here. And from a capitalistic understanding of things, the Daily Wire's way of doing things is not completely wrong. It's actually, we can say there are some things that are questionable in their contract, and I think that's something they need to take a look at, but that's just what a capitalist society is. That's just how it works. And I don't know all the YouTube world and everything, but I can certainly say that I don't see that they meant to do Steven evil, as Steven put it in his soliloquy, that they were just trying to penalize. And I don't think that's what it was, to be honest. And I think that wasn't a good reflection of what and who the Daily Wire are representing here. All right, let's keep going.
And then proceeded to release that publicly. That is disgusting. It is disgusting, and it is vile on a pure human level. Jeremy, again, has gone out of his way for Steven more times than I can count. He has counseled Steven personally. And Steven decided in premeditated fashion that he was going to tape his friend and then release it to grow his email list. It is that simple.
That is actually troubling. Premeditated fashion. Now, release it to grow his email list. I'm not sure if that's true. Because, of course, by him exposing the Daily Wires in the way that he did is certainly going to harbor a level of sympathy from others, and they would want to follow Steven. I even felt the same way. Actually, I love Steven Crowder and I love the Daily Wire. I hate having to see them fighting with each other like this because the conversation needs to happen. Things need to be better among the conservatives, of course. But I hate the idea of having to pick side because they both doing the same work and they both doing so great that I just want to see them prosper. And I just want to see them working together. If they can't work together, at least work in different areas of the field, bringing about positive change in our culture. And I think altogether, they're both doing good work. But I hate having to pick side because both are great, man.
And I'll show you the timeline here because the case here is that, again, this term sheet that he got, he was so offended by it, he just had to speak up. He couldn't be held back any longer. He had to speak up on behalf of the little guy. Okay, I'm going to read you the timeline of what happened during this negotiation and when he decided to tape his friend, his supposed friend, Jeremy Boring. So here is the timeline here. October 5th, 2022 is when we sent Steven the supposedly evil term sheet. So evil. So you would imagine that if the term sheet was that evil, October 6th, he couldn't have held back. How could you guys do this? It would be just October 5th is when we sent him this term sheet offering him $50 million over 4 years plus a 2-year extension for $25 million. Basketball player type money. On November 2nd, Steven called up Jeremy and said, I want $30 million a year and a bunch of changes to the term sheet. I'm not going to redline the term sheet. I'm not going to edit the term sheet. I just want you to send me a brand new offer. On November 6th, 4 days later, remember, this is after he's already sounded off. He's got the term sheet. He's had it for a month. November 6th was election night. You'll recall, if you're a Daily Wire fan, Steven Crowder appeared on our election night coverage. Everything was very friendly. Everything was very chummy. Everything was great. November 14th or thereabouts, we decided that we couldn't meet his demands. That his demands were not rational in business terms, that he wanted too much money, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So we let him know, no hard feelings. We're still friends, just like we do in every contract negotiation. As Tim Pool said on his show last night, we've had contract negotiations with Tim, and we disagreed, and we went our separate ways, and we still like Tim. Tim still likes us, and all the rest. Okay. So November 14th or thereabouts, we told Steven that we couldn't meet his demands. Fast forward another month, December 12th, he registered the site Stop Big Con. Hey, that's when he registered it. Remember, October 5th is when he received the terms.
Wow.
November 14th is when we said we could not meet his demands. December 12th is when he registered Stop Big Con.
Wow. That is very, so I see what he means by premeditated move. And he still doesn't say, I mean, that's a good chunk of facts here. But it still doesn't say that Steven Crowder did this to throw dirt at the Daily Wire, premeditated move in some cases. Yeah, he's still concerned with the fact that he recorded the voice of Jeremy Bowen, saved the recording since October. And then, he waited to be, October. Wow, that is 2 months later, man. Just about that. Man, that's not a good look on Steven either. Why would you do that at such a time? So these are things that Steven would have to answer for himself. So I can't speak for him here. But I get the nature of the argument that Ben Shapiro is proposing.
November 14th is when we said we could not meet his demands. December 12th is when he registered Stop Big Con because he knew that 3 days later he was going to be announcing that he was leaving the Blaze. He needed a plan, and attacking us was the plan.
Oh, so now I don't know if that is exactly Steven's motive. It could be. It could have been. Maybe I'm so naive and deceived. Maybe I like Steven Crowder too much that I don't want to throw dirt on him. I just don't know. But it's a possibility. Okay, so we can consider it, but I just can't run with that narrative, at least not yet, to say he did this because he's leaving the Blaze, and therefore I'm gonna just poo all over the Daily Wire, make them look bad, and galvanize a number of followers for myself. That's a powerful statement. And I don't see Steven Crowder as the man who will do that. Doesn't necessarily mean he can't. I'm a Christian. I know we live in a world of sinful men with evil intent. I get it. But I'm one of those guys who like to give people the benefit of the doubt until I have further light. But I still understand where Ben Shapiro is coming from. I got to do some thinking and some praying because I just don't want to run with the narrative yet.
December 15th, he announced he was leaving the Blaze. A month after that, he texted Jeremy in friendly fashion to ask if they could talk. On January 9th, he called Jeremy and proceeded to tape him. Without permission, without Jeremy's knowledge, he proceeded to tape a person who was supposedly his friend.
That in itself, flat out, was wrong. I don't think that's a good look whatsoever. If a person is talking to you private, whether it's a business call, private, if you're going to tape them, you should let them know ahead of time. I think that's just a natural thing to do. I don't like to do work in secrecy. I don't like that. Anything that has to be done in secrecy, it shows me there is evil intent, and I don't like that. So that's me. Somebody may disagree with me, but I do not think by taping Jeremy Bowen phone calls with Steven, what Steven did here, and taping and release it to the public, that was not a good look. That right there is the point that I have to say beyond the shadow of a doubt. I agree with Ben Shapiro.
And remember, this is all based on the passion of the upset that he had over a term sheet that was submitted to him on October 5th. It is a month. It's actually 36 days after. So January 17th is when he launches Stop Big Con. So just to get this straight, just to get the timeline straight, because this is what we would call a premeditated move in an attempt to grow your email list. This means 104 days elapsed between when Steven Crowder received the term sheet that we submitted to him and when he launched Stop Big Con. 104 days. And it means that 36 days elapsed between when he decided to attack Daily Wire and Jeremy by purchasing Stop Big Con and when he called Jeremy to tape him. So that means well over 3 months elapsed, again, between when he received this egregiously evil term sheet, which, by the way, is not egregiously evil. The term sheet is perfectly legitimate. It was the basis for further negotiation. There would have been moves on both sides, but there's nothing wrong with saying to a person who produces a show, one, you have to produce a certain number of shows, and if you don't, we're not going to pay you for the shows that you don't produce. Yeah. And two, if your show begins to lose money, you also lose money. This is how business works. This is how the media works. This is how capitalism works. We are not communists. We do not pay people in order to not generate revenue. We cannot run a business and keep it functional and employ 300 people and have the money to spend on all the wonderful projects that we like to do, on the $100 million we're going to spend on kids content, on the suing of Joe Biden's administration, we can't do any of that stuff unless we are a profitable company. We don't pay people just for the fun of it. So that means this is totally premeditated. It is an attempt to grow an email list by deliberately misconstruing terms of a perfectly legitimate, non-binding term sheet for a person that I personally and Jeremy, have gone out of our way to help multiple times.
I still can't run with that. It just doesn't tell me the truth. Like, that's a possibility. I understand, Ben, but I can't say his intent was to grow his email list by... I get what you're saying. I understand the nature of what Steven did. I understand how wrong the recording was. I understand him exposing it to the public was not a good look. I understand all of that. But I cannot say Steven was trying to grow his email list as a result of doing that, because I don't know his heart. And this is why I'm saying I can't judge what I don't know. I can only work with facts here, with admissions. If the man admits it, I get it. If you have enough facts to line it up, I can understand. But there is not enough to say that his intent was that. That's a possibility. And I understand that. But I don't know, man. I don't know. That was an unnecessary dirt being thrown at Steven here in essence. And I'm not trying to justify Steven's behavior. I think Steven was wrong on many fronts. To a large degree, I think the Daily Wire is more right in there than Steven is. I have to agree. Because they're a business. They've been doing this for a long time, and they have their way of doing things. If Steven didn't agree with the contract, just say, I don't agree, and I'm done with it. I think going publicly and then went and did what he did wasn't right. That's not a good look on the conservative move as a whole. But however, Steven's intent was to prevent this from happening to anybody else. He didn't want to name the Daily Wire publicly, but if you read the context of his first message, people knew he was referring to Daily Wire. Okay, and the Daily Wire came out and say, okay, he's talking about us. Anyway, that's my perspective. Let's keep moving.
A person who then claims that we are the big shills for YouTube, right? We're the ones who are shilling for big tech. So what's his claim on that? His claim is that we're shilling for big tech by saying that if you get banned from YouTube and we lose money because of that, then you also lose money. Well, I noticed that someone else makes the vast bulk of his living via the exposure he receives on YouTube, and his name is Steven Crowder. Steven has a bigger following on YouTube than I do. He has a massive following on YouTube. He's a YouTube superstar. He has 6 million followers on YouTube. He doesn't want to be banned on YouTube. By the way, he doesn't have to be demonetized in order to continue. The demonetization does not mean that he doesn't indirectly make money on YouTube. The exposure he receives on YouTube allows him to push people to Mug Club. He knows this. This is why he has a Piss Off YouTube segment, which is smart. Right? He does the same thing on his show that I do on my show. Exactly the same thing. You will hear me on the show when I discuss COVID. I'm about to say a bunch of things I can't say on YouTube. So.
Yep, PG-13. And I agree with Ben on that one also. Is exactly true. There are times you just have to make that move, when it comes to YouTube. But I don't know, man. But I see Ben's argument, though.
You will hear me on the show when I discuss COVID. I'm about to say a bunch of things I can't say on YouTube. So head on over to Daily Wire Plus and subscribe and hear the rest of it. Steven does the same thing. He says, I'm going to have my Piss Off YouTube segment in which he avoids saying the things that will get him permanently banned on YouTube, but directs people to his site. So is he a shill for big tech? Is he a shill for big tech? Because if he were really not a shill for big tech, apparently, he would just say whatever he wants any day. He would just say it any day. And if they knock him off, they knock him off. But he's not doing that because he's not a moron. Steven's not a moron. He apparently is just a bad person who tapes his friends and then releases the tapes for personal gain. I'm personally insulted by Steven's behavior here. I'm more insulted. It has nothing to do with me because he hasn't actually said anything about me. It has to do with you don't get to attack my best friend and suggest that my best friend is some sort of shill for big tech when we spend every day, literally every day in this business, attempting to fight big tech and to win. When we spend every day trying to bring good content to people who can't get it, in a lot of other ways and
Yeah.
build a business, who go out of our way to make offers to people for tens of millions of dollars so they can continue to promote, to provide the content that you want. Tens of millions of dollars to people like Steven Crowder. I don't see a lot of other people walking across the table to make this offer to Steven Crowder. The easiest thing to do in our particular industry is to attack your friends and make money off of that. The hardest thing to do in our industry is to win at business and to win against the left, and those two things are simultaneous. Because if you lose money, you can't keep operating and fight the agenda of the left. You know, it makes me nauseous to be talking about this, honestly. It makes me sick to be talking about this. I'm sad for Steven that he feels the necessity to plan for months, apparently, to attack his friends, to try to grow an email list in the most cynical possible fashion, and tape his friends on the phone, and then release that public. Who does that? Who does that? Is that something you do? I mean, let me just ask you on a personal level. Have you ever done that? Have you ever taped your friends? Is that a thing that you do?
Wow. Ben's got a point. I mean, I've already shared my perspective, so I'm not gonna add to that. This video is long enough. Ben's got a point, and I think Steven Crowder was wrong on many fronts. I don't know if his motive was wrong, but I think the way he went about it wasn't right. Anyway, I'll stop right there and I'll share a final thought. As always, here is one verse for you. He that answers a matter before he hears it. This is actually a lesson for me here, guys, because when you hear a situation such as Steven Crowder in the Daily Wire, one gives an answer before he hears it. It is folly and shame. So, in other words, you need to take everything into consideration before you run with it. I didn't know there was a time that lapsed between the conversation with Jeremy Bowen and when Steven Crowder released it. An October conversation, and this matter was released all the way in the year of 2023. That is very telling. And the recording without Jeremy Bowen's knowledge, I didn't know that was happening either. I thought Jeremy Bowen was aware. The fact he wasn't aware, that's just not a good look for Steven. But again, there are many other things we can talk about, but it's just these are the number of things that I noticed that I'm like, you shouldn't have done it this way. I still love Steven. I'm still going to watch his channel. I think he's the funniest guy that I've ever heard on the conservative platforms. He's got a way with words and a way with facts. I love the Daily Wire. I'm still going to listen to them as well. So I'm not picking side here. I think there's things we can learn from as far as dealing with issues, especially when it comes to friends and family. We got to be very careful how we go about it. Lesson learned. And like the Bible says, before you answer a matter, make sure you take time to listen carefully to the whole thing. And I think there's much more to learn. We should keep listening and make sense of what's happening. Until next time, and as always, remember to look unto Jesus and to live by faith. All right, have a good one. Bye. Hello, friends. Did you enjoy today's video? I hope that it was clear and I hope it was a blessing to you. And if you have, make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more of my notification uploads, okay? There are links below where you can get in touch with us, links where you can support the channel, links to our merch, and also if you want to join the community page, join the Look and Live YouTube family. And if you have any question, any prayer requests as well, we welcome all of that in the discussion. Join also our Discord page, and there are a number of things there as well where we communicate with you on a daily basis about what's happening in the channel. By the way, if you happen to be interested in the study of the Word, we have a YouTube channel dedicated for that, the Look and Live Bible Studies YouTube channel. You can go and subscribe to that as well. And as always, remember to look unto Jesus and to live by faith. Have a good one. Bye. Hello, friends.